Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O you who are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Each week before I begin my task for the week, usually somewhere about 9 o'clock or so on a Tuesday morning, the theory is having a Monday day off, but some weeks that happens, some weeks it doesn't, depending on the phone. I'll go ahead and create a list. A list entitled usually Oklahoma Ministry. I'll begin to go ahead and write things to do that day for ministry and later on that week. Looking through calendars, remembering appointments, thinking about things that I would need to get done. Even chores. It always seems to help to have a to-do list. A friend of mine recently asked me, why do you do these lists? You seem to be such a spontaneous person. And I said I was a spontaneous person in ministry at first, until one lovely Friday afternoon, when my phone rang around 2 in the afternoon, and it was a local pastor who called to ask me if I was ill, since I had completely forgotten the women's luncheon and I was the keynote speaker. That began the list. I had it on my calendar, but didn't have my calendar open on that Friday. The list began. I knew how to make it because in food service, you have to go ahead and put out lists of jobs that need to be done at the beginning of every day. As the staff goes ahead and does those prep jobs and things, they knock off that list. And if the list is done, everything is prepped, then the glorious kitchen staff gets to go on a break, which they really loved, for the 5 years that I did that. I just brought that back in order to stay organized. Normally, I remember just about everything, lest you're visiting with us and then your name will elude me like nobody's business. So if I remember it, consider it a minor miracle that I remember it, really, because it normally doesn't happen. You have to remind me many times, and then I will remember. Others around here are better at it, aren't they, visitors, right? You come back and go, how did they remember my name? Oh my goodness, that's amazing. We have a few of those name experts in here, and I rely on them heavily. All of us rely on our memories more than we realize. Even if we've got one of these to help us with our memories, if we shut it off, it doesn't remind us of anything, does it? And then we go, oh no, I was supposed to be here. Oh, my phone's off. Uh-oh, there goes the reminder. Unfortunately, in ministry, I find issues with memory at a terrible time in people's lives. Usually their memories have become so faulty due to two very, very dreaded terms. Dementia, or, what's the name of that one again? Alzheimer's. Some kind of assisted living or live-in companion is required at first, and then it builds. And while we might think it might be difficult for the person affected, and it is, who seems to be most affected after 20 years in ministry are the family and friends that are no longer remembered as well. Not that there aren't moments of hope where suddenly that person has a clear memory of you and of events, but most of the time, it's not there. I even find myself not knowing the people well at all that I serve, not compared to their families anyway, challenged to go into a room where the conversation may not always make a lot of sense. My guess is most of us have had someone affected by one of these two conditions. Treatments are ongoing, there is hope, but in the end, it's always difficult to get any kind of recognition. The people forget, and sometimes, as we know, are also forgotten. Many times I'm the only visitor they've seen in a month, according to the staff. And that can be hard. Our story today is about someone who is feeling forgotten. Forgotten in a lot of ways. Hannah, as a young bride, is feeling forgotten. Forgotten certainly not by her spouse. Her spouse gives a double portion of food and pays special attention to her. Her trouble is that there is not a son born to her. Why do you say that is important? Because in that ancient society, as we learned from the story of Ruth and Naomi just a few weeks ago, that is a key passport to success and prosperity in the ancient world. And without that key, Hannah is in real trouble. First, she is mocked and made fun of by his other wife, who has 2 sons. Because of the way the law works, because she has 2 sons and he has none, she would stand to inherit nothing or lose everything that she had for security if her husband were to die. She would have to rely on her family at best. So she is in real trouble there. So much so, not only is she ridiculed by the other wife, but she begins to ridicule herself, driving herself to not eating, to praying where she's so distraught. We've probably met people like this that are so distraught, they make us back off a little bit because their grief is so strong. I certainly have been in a traumatic setting where the response is almost illogical of sorts of the different responses that people have. This is where she is. The mouth is moving. This story is incredibly descriptive. We actually see her distress in incredible color. So much so that she stopped eating. This is a story that I use in youth ministry when I talk about youth and adults and eating disorders. That's what this is. She will not eat. She is so distraught. I can tell you that as distraught as I might get in my time, this will not be my issue, though. Probably the other. I've never met a snack food I didn't like. That's my problem. Probably that's true for some of us as well. I don't know. But I know that lack of eating certainly is a concern for millions throughout this country. Out of choice, like Hannah. They become so distraught, so not believing in themselves and who they are. This is a punishment to themselves, let alone the punishment they're receiving from outside their world. But the amazing thing happens in this story. It's a beautiful line. And every translation that I looked at this week says the same thing. God remembered Hannah. Other people had written her off. She had written herself off in that society, but not God. Eli, who should know better than to write somebody off, the prophet of God, thinks she's drunk and says so. Again, wonderful color of the story. But God doesn't. God stays with her through it all and remembers her and helps her. God remembers her. As soon as I see that line, I go right to Isaiah 43. The lines are wonderful. Can a woman forget her nursing child or show no compassion for the child of her womb? Even these may forget, but I will not forget you, says God. See, I have inscribed your name in the palms of my hands. God remembers each of us. God does not forget. Even when others do, God remembers. There is a power to memory. As we go into a holiday week, what are we doing? We're remembering with a massive litany. We took some time tonight to remember those who are so incredibly marginalized in the transgender community, so incredibly forgotten, that unreported violence and brutality permeates our society, all because people are different. But we today remember. Surely God remembers. There are a lot of memories that I have that I hold dear in my childhood. I hope this week you can lift some of those up as good memories. Memories of being with friends that you're still friends with to this day. I can remember my aunt, the one who passed away last month. The incredible, I know dish patterns, this is a little odd, Cape Cod dishes. They were a beautiful pattern, a white pattern, octagonal shape, with a beautiful red print clipper ship in the center of the dish. Fantastic. Only those Cape Cod dishes, received at their wedding in 1943, were used 2 times a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. When those came out, you knew it was one of those 2 holidays. I remember as a child they were bigger than the regular plates, so you could put more Thanksgiving dinner on them, which I really liked. I remember those plates as I remembered my aunt this morning. I don't know what's happened to those plates over the years. Hopefully my cousin Bob has them. Surely as we gather this week, there will be remembering for us. God remembers us. So we are charged to love and remember each other. The friends that we have, sometimes the friends that we've lost. And God will help us remember in good and joyful and loving ways. Amen.